I think we are. We can be the ones that are coming.
Buck, you have the...
Look, I've been where you live forever.
A void. You can't outrun the emptiness.
We can't do this.
Let now. That's why we need each other.
We can't stop him alone. No one can. But we can find a way.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts.
Marvel's misfit team is finally stepping into the spotlight. A broken bar, but is Thunderbolts the game-changer fans have been waiting for, or just another filler in the MCU timeline? Today on Hidden Real Fact, we're breaking down my review of the movie and uncovering some hidden details and facts you might have missed on your first watch. Thunderbolts is a 2025 American superhero film based on Marvel Comics featuring the Thunderbolts team, produced by Marvel Studios and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the 36th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. The film was directed by Jake Schreier from a script written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Callow. It stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurylenko, Louis Pullman, Geraldine Viswanathan, Chris Bauer, Wendell Pierce, David Harbour, Hannah John Common, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. In the story, a group of anti-heroes fall into a deadly trap and are forced to work together on a dangerous mission. Marvel first teased the Thunderbolts team in 2021. The movie was officially announced in June 2022, with Schreier and Pearson attached. The main cast was revealed in September, and more actors joined in early 2023. By March 2023, Lee Sung-shin came on board to rewrite the script, reuniting with Schreier after working on the Netflix series Beef. Production was delayed in 2023 due to Hollywood labor strikes, which led to some cast changes in early 2024. Joanna Callow later joined for additional rewrites. Filming took place from February to June 2024 at Tri-Leaf Studios and Atlanta Metro Studios in Georgia, and also on location in Utah and Kuala Lumpur. Thunderbolts premiered on April 22, 2025, in London at Cineworld Leicester Square, and was released in the United States on May 2 as the final film of Phase 5 of the MCU. The asterisk in the title was part of the marketing campaign and was explained at the end of the film. The Thunderbolts are rebranded as the New Avengers. The movie's title changes to the New Avengers during the end credits and in later marketing. The film was well received by critics but earned only $382 million, which was lower than expected for a Marvel film. Plot: in Malaysia, Yelena Belova destroys a secret laboratory for CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who is trying to erase proof of her ties to the OXE Group's Sentry project. With her impeachment looming, de Fontaine sends Yelena, John Walker, Ava Starr, and Antonia Dreykov to an OXE facility with hidden orders to kill each other. During the fight, Ava kills Antonia, and a man named Bob, who suffers from amnesia, is released from suspended animation. Realizing they were all set up to be eliminated along with the evidence, the survivors band together to escape. When Yelena and Walker touch Bob, they briefly see visions of their darkest memories. De Fontaine learns that the group survived and that Bob was a volunteer in the Sentry trials. At the site, Bob creates a distraction so the others can escape. He survives being shot, flies uncontrollably into the air, crashes back down, and is captured. He is then moved to the former Avengers Tower in Manhattan, now renamed the Watchtower. De Fontaine plans to present Bob to the media as a new superhero, hoping this will save her career. Meanwhile, Alexei Shostakov overhears the plot and rescues Yelena, Walker, and Ava. Inspired by Yelena's childhood soccer team, Walker calls the group the Thunderbolts. Bucky Barnes, now a congressman, learns about the events through De Fontaine's assistant Mel. He captures the Thunderbolts, intending to use them in the impeachment hearings. When Mel warns about Bob, Barnes takes the team to New York to infiltrate the Watchtower. There, they find that Bob has agreed to become the superhero sentry under the Fontaine. Although Bob easily defeats the Thunderbolts, he spares them, seeing them as harmless. However, Bob begins to develop a godlike ego, turns on the Fontaine, and is stopped by Melly using a failsafe. This awakens the Void, Bob's darker alter ego. Born from his trauma and depression, the Void unleashes supernatural darkness across New York, trapping people in visions of their worst memories. To stop him, Yelena enters the darkness to find Bob's true self. She faces her own painful past and finds Bob hiding in a vision of his childhood bedroom. The Thunderbolts join her, confronting Bob's traumas until they reach his memory of the Sentry experiment. They fight the Void but are quickly overpowered. Just as Bob starts losing control completely, the Thunderbolts support him emotionally, reminding him he is not alone. This helps him regain control, and light returns to the city. The Thunderbolts then move to expose the Fontaine. However, she stages a press conference, presenting them as the new Avengers and claiming credit. The group plays along, but Yelena tells her privately, "We own you now." In a post-credits scene set 14 months later, the new Avengers and Bob discuss rising tensions with Sam Wilson's Avengers team, who are suing them for using the Avengers name. While dealing with this, they detect the arrival of a spacecraft with a giant 4 symbol, hinting at the Fantastic Four. Cast Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, a former Black Widow assassin who struggles with her sister Natasha Romanoff's death but grows into a leadership role. Violet McGraw plays a young Yelena in flashbacks. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, a super soldier and congressman who becomes the leader of the Thunderbolts. Originally brainwashed as an assassin, he now fights for redemption. Wyatt Russell as John Walker, U.S. agent, a super soldier and former Captain America replacement who joins the Thunderbolts after being discharged. Olga Kurylenko as Antonia Drelikov, Taskmaster, an assassin with the ability to copy fighting styles. Once controlled by her father, she was freed in Black Widow. Lewis Pullman as Robert Bob Reynolds, Sentry, Void, a superpowered man with amnesia. As Sentry, he has immense power. As the Void, he becomes a dangerous dark force tied to his trauma. Geraldine Viswanathan as Mel, the Fontaine's assistant, who struggles with her moral compass and eventually helps the Thunderbolts. Chris Bauer as Holt, a security officer for OXE Group. Wendell Pierce as Gary, a congressman determined to impeach the Fontaine. David Harbour as Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian, Yelena's father figure and a Russian super soldier, whose complicated relationship with her continues to develop. Hannah John Common as Ava Starr, Ghost, a Thunderbolt who can phase through objects, now in greater control of her powers than before. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra Fontaine, the CIA director who forms the Thunderbolts. Ambitious and manipulative, she is revealed to have bought Avengers Tower and renamed it the Watchtower. A flashback reveals her traumatic past. Additionally, Gabrielle Bindloss returns as Olivia, John Walker's wife from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Thunderbolts movie, a comprehensive analysis production. The production journey of Thunderbolts represents a complex intersection of Marvel Studios' expanding universe and the challenges of modern filmmaking. The film is directed by Jake Schreier and written by Joanna Colo, Eric Pearson, and Lee Sung-jin. It stars an ensemble cast featuring Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurylenko, Lewis Pullman, Geraldine Viswanathan, Chris Bauer, Wendell Edward Pierce, Hannah John Common, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Marvel Studios began teasing the formation of a Thunderbolts team within the MCU in 2021. The film was revealed to be in development in June 2022, when Schreier and Pearson were attached. The production process showcases the intricate planning required for modern superhero filmmaking, particularly within the Marvel Cinematic Universe's interconnected narrative structure. The creative team brought together represents a blend of Marvel veterans and fresh perspectives. Lee joined to rewrite the script by March 2023, one of several creatives who returned to work with Schreier from the Netflix series Beef. 2023 present. This collaboration between Schreier and multiple Beef alumni, including production designer Grace Yan and editor Harry Yoon, demonstrates the director's approach to maintaining creative consistency across projects. The casting process evolved significantly during development. The main cast was revealed in September, with additional casting through early 2023. However, the production faced several notable cast changes that would impact both scheduling and creative direction. Development and pre-production. The conceptual development of Thunderbolts traces back to earlier Marvel Cinematic Universe installments that established the characters who would eventually form this unconventional team. During the production of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, film Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, director James Gunn expressed interest in making a film based on the Marvel Comics team Thunderbolts, a group of anti-heroes and supercriminals. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige said this was a possibility based on the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. The evolution of this concept demonstrates the organic development of Marvel's cinematic strategy. By May 2021, Gunn was no longer interested in the idea after directing the DC Extended Universe, film The Suicide Squad, 2021, because that team from DC Comics is based on a similar concept to the Thunderbolts. This shift in Gunn's interest opened the door for other creative voices to shape the project. The groundwork for the team's formation was laid systematically across multiple MCU projects. Speculation that a Thunderbolts team would be introduced to the MCU began in mid-2019 following the announcement that Daniel Bryan HL would appear as Helmut Zemo in the Disney Plus series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2021. Reprising his role from the MCU film Captain America, Civil War, 2016. The character recruitment process began taking shape through various MCU installments. That series introduced Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra DeFontaine and shows her recruiting Wyatt Russell's John Walker, U.S. agent. DeFontaine is also shown to be working with Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova in the post-credits scene of the MCU film Black Widow, 2021. These strategic character introductions and connections laid the narrative foundation for the eventual team formation. When the project officially entered development, Jake Schreier was attached to direct Thunderbolts from a screenplay by Eric Pearson, with Feige producing. Schreier was hired after a presentation that blew away Marvel Studios executives. The selection process demonstrates Marvel's commitment to finding directors who can bring fresh perspectives to established properties. The official announcement came with significant fanfare. The film was officially announced in July at San Diego Comic-Con, SDCC, with a release date of July 26, 2024. It was set to be the last film in Phase 5 of the MCU. This positioning as the capstone of Phase 5 established the film's importance within the broader MCU narrative structure. The casting announcements generated considerable excitement among fans and industry observers. At the D23 Expo the same month, Pugh, Russell, John Common, and Louis-Dreyfus were confirmed to star, alongside Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, David Harbour as Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian, and Olga Kurylenko as Antonia Drelikov, Taskmaster, all reprising their roles from previous MCU projects. Director Jake Schreier provided insight into his vision for the character dynamics and narrative approach. Schreier compared the character dynamics to those in the films Reservoir Dogs, 1992, Ronin, 1998, and Mission: Impossible: A Ghost Protocol, 2011, which are all about a mismatched team forced to work together. He also pointed to a less likely inspiration in the film Toy Story 3, 2010, saying the Thunderbolts team are all facing obsolescence like the Toy Story characters are in that film. The pre-production phase involved significant script development and refinement. Steven Yeun was cast in a significant role with the potential to continue in future MCU films. Yeun worked with Schreier on the Netflix series Beef, 2023 present, and the director had the actor in mind when adding the character to the film. This casting represented the collaborative relationships between Schreier and his Beef team members. Script development involved multiple iterations and writers. Lee Sung-jin revealed that he had joined the film to rewrite the script at Schreier's request. Lee also collaborated with Schreier on Beef, which Lee created. Lee said there were a lot of themes and exciting things about the film that drew him to the project. The involvement of multiple writers reflects the complex narrative requirements of integrating multiple established characters into a cohesive storyline. Key crew positions were filled with experienced professionals who brought specific expertise to the project. Grace Yun was set as production designer by April after doing so on Beef, and cinematographer Steve Yedlin was working on the film in Atlanta, Georgia. By May, Sonja Milkovic-Hayes was the costume designer after working on the MCU films Captain Marvel, 2019, and Spider-Man, No Way Home, 2021. The filming process for Thunderbolts encountered significant challenges that would ultimately reshape the production timeline and cast composition. Filming was originally scheduled to begin in mid-June 2023 and last for 6 months. However, external factors would significantly impact this initial plan. The 2023 Hollywood labor disputes created substantial delays for the production. At the start of May, filming was delayed due to the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike and was planned to resume after the strike concluded. This delay had cascading effects on the production schedule and cast availability. Principal photography for Thunderbolts began on February 26, 2024, and continued until June 19, 2024. Additional filming occurred in December 2024 in Atlanta. The production faced multiple delays due to the 2023 Hollywood writers and actors strikes, which impacted its original shooting schedule. The extended delay period created complications for cast members who had other commitments. The original filming schedule overlapped with Stan's work on the film The Apprentice, 2024, for which he gained weight to portray Donald Trump. He had begun the physical transformation needed to portray Barnes when the strikes began and he had to reverse course. This physical preparation demonstrates the commitment required from actors in superhero productions. Cast changes became necessary due to scheduling conflicts. Yun exited the film then due to a scheduling issue caused by the delayed production, but expressed interest in working on a future MCU film. This departure required significant adjustment to the production plans and character development. The replacement process moved quickly to maintain production momentum. Lewis Pullman was revealed to be the studio's top choice to replace Yun as Sentry by the end of January, and his casting was soon confirmed. Additional cast adjustments included Geraldine Viswanathan was cast in the comedic supporting role of DeFontaine's assistant Mal, replacing Adbiri after she left the film due to its delayed schedule. When principal photography finally began, the production utilized multiple locations and facilities. Principal photography began by February 26, 2024, at Trilith Studios and Atlanta Metro Studios in Atlanta, under the working title Oops All Berries, which is a reference to a variation of the cereal Cap'n Crunch that only featured the berry-flavored pieces. The choice of working title reflects the production's approach to maintaining secrecy while adding a touch of humor. The technical approach to filming incorporated cutting-edge cinematography techniques. Andrew Draws Palermo serves as cinematographer, after previously working on the Marvel Studios series Moon Knight, 2022. With the film being shot for IMAX, the IMAX filming demonstrates Marvel's commitment to providing premium viewing experiences for audiences. During production, significant title changes occurred. By March, the film had been retitled The Thunderbolts. This addition of an asterisk to the title created intrigue and speculation among fans about its significance. Location filming expanded beyond Atlanta to capture diverse environments. The Utah Film Commission announced that Thunderbolts was set to film in Emery County and Grant County, Utah, in mid-2023, spending over $4.5 million in the state. Executive producer Brian Chapek said it would be a more grounded film set across the world with several practical locations. The Utah filming provided authentic outdoor locations for key sequences. Filming occurred in Emery County and Grant County, Utah, From May 29 to June 12, 2024, the specific Utah locations offered unique geographical features that enhanced the film's visual palette. International filming locations added global scope to the production. Filming also took place at the Medan Puzar and Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and concluded in the week of June 19. These Malaysian locations provided distinctive urban environments that contributed to the film's international setting. The production approach emphasized practical elements over digital effects where possible. Louis Dreyfus, who finished filming her scenes by early June, believed Marvel Studios was trying to go back to their roots with the film, focusing on the characters' humanity, practical stunt sequences, and avoiding visual effects when possible. This practical approach represents a conscious effort to ground the superhero action in tangible reality. Additional photography became necessary to refine certain sequences. In early December, additional photography took place in Atlanta. These reshoots allowed the filmmakers to enhance specific scenes and ensure narrative coherence. Post-production. The post-production phase of Thunderbolts involved assembling a team of experienced editors and visual effects specialists to bring the complex narrative to life. Harry Yoon and Angela M. Catanzaro are editing the film. Yoon previously worked on the MCU film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 2021, and with Schreier on Beef. The editorial team's previous collaboration with Schreier ensured continuity in the director's vision throughout the post-production process. The visual effects requirements for Thunderbolts necessitated collaboration with multiple industry-leading companies. Jake Morrison is the visual effects supervisor, with visual effects provided by Industrial Light Magic, Framestore, Digital Domain, Rising Sun Pictures, Rainalt VFX, Base FX, Crafty Apes, and Mammal Studios. This extensive roster of visual effects companies indicates the complexity and scale of the digital work required to bring the superhero action sequences to life. The distribution of visual effects work across multiple studios allows for specialization in different aspects of the film's digital requirements. Industrial Light Magic, with its long history of creating groundbreaking visual effects for major blockbusters, likely handled some of the most complex sequences. Framestore, known for its expertise in creature work and environmental effects, would have contributed specialized skills to specific scenes. The post-production timeline allowed for extensive refinement of the film's visual and narrative elements. The extended period between the completion of principal photography in June 2024 and the film's scheduled release in May 2025 provided ample time for visual effects completion, color correction, sound design, and musical composition. The editing process involved integrating footage from multiple locations and extensive visual effects sequences into a cohesive narrative. The collaboration between editors Harry Yoon and Angela M. Catanzaro would have been crucial in maintaining pacing and ensuring that the ensemble cast's storylines were effectively balanced throughout the film. The visual effects work required careful coordination to ensure consistency across the various companies contributing to the project. Visual effects supervisor Jake Morrison's role involved overseeing this complex collaboration and maintaining visual continuity throughout the film's action sequences and digital environments. Music. The musical score for Thunderbolts represents a significant collaboration that brings together the film's creative vision with accomplished musical talent. The band Sun Lux began recording the score for Thunderbolts at Abbey Road Studios in London in the first week of February 2025, after previously scoring Schreier's film Paper Towns, 2015. The selection of Sun Lux as composers demonstrates director Jake Schreier's commitment to working with collaborators who understand his artistic vision. Their previous work together on Paper Towns established a creative relationship that Schreier chose to continue with this much larger scale production. Sun Lux, known for their experimental and emotionally resonant compositions, brings a unique sonic palette to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The choice of Abbey Road Studios for recording sessions adds prestige and historical significance to the musical creation process. Abbey Road's legendary status in music history and its state-of-the-art recording facilities provide an ideal environment for creating a score that needs to match the epic scope of a Marvel superhero film while maintaining the more intimate, character-driven elements that distinguish Thunderbolts from other MCU entries. The timing of the score recording, taking place in February 2025, just months before the film's May release, indicates the final stages of post-production. This late-stage musical composition allows the composers to work with near-final cuts of the film, ensuring that the score precisely matches the pacing, emotional beats, and action sequences as they appear in their completed form. Sunlux's musical style, which often incorporates electronic elements with traditional orchestration, suggests that the Thunderbolts score will offer a distinctive sound that reflects the team's status as anti-heroes operating outside traditional superhero conventions. Their approach to composition, which frequently explores themes of identity, transformation, and human connection, aligns well with the character arcs and thematic content of the film. The band's experience in creating music that balances accessibility with artistic complexity makes them well suited for a Marvel production that aims to appeal to mainstream audiences while offering deeper emotional and thematic content. Their work will need to support both intimate character moments and large-scale action sequences, requiring versatility in musical composition and arrangement. Released theatrical. The theatrical release strategy for Thunderbolts reflects both the film's importance within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the complex factors that influenced its journey to theaters. Thunderbolts is scheduled to be released in the United States on May 2, 2025. In IMAX, this May release date positions the film strategically within the traditional summer blockbuster season, maximizing its potential for box office success. The film's release timeline underwent several significant changes throughout its development and production phases. It was previously scheduled for July 26, 2024, December 20, 2024, and July 25, 2025. These multiple date changes reflect the production challenges faced during the 2023 Hollywood labor disputes and subsequent scheduling adjustments across the entertainment industry. The final positioning of the release date carries particular significance within the Marvel Cinematic Universe's broader narrative structure. It will be the final film of Phase 5 of the MCU. This placement as the concluding chapter of Phase 5 establishes Thunderbolts as a crucial transition point in the MCU's ongoing storyline, potentially setting up important narrative elements for Phase 6. The IMAX release format demonstrates Marvel Studios' commitment to providing premium viewing experiences for audiences. The decision to film specifically for IMAX presentation ensures that viewers will experience enhanced visual and audio quality in properly equipped theaters. This technical approach reflects the film's action-heavy content and the visual spectacle expected from superhero productions. The May 2025 release date also reflects strategic positioning within the competitive landscape of major film releases. This timing avoids direct competition with other major blockbusters while capitalizing on the traditionally strong movie-going period leading into summer. The date selection demonstrates careful market analysis and strategic planning to maximize the film's commercial potential. Distribution through Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures ensures wide theatrical availability across multiple markets and territories. Disney's extensive distribution network provides the infrastructure necessary to support a global release strategy, ensuring that international audiences have access to the film concurrent with its domestic release. The theatrical marketing campaign has built anticipation through strategic trailer releases and promotional events. The film's marketing has emphasized its unique position as a team of anti-heroes, distinguishing it from more traditional superhero narratives and appealing to audiences seeking fresh perspectives within the MCU. Home media. While specific details about the home media release strategy for Thunderbolts have not yet been officially announced, the film will likely follow Marvel Studios' established patterns for digital and physical media distribution. Based on Marvel's recent release strategies, the film can be expected to become available on digital platforms approximately 45–60 days after its theatrical release, followed by streaming availability on Disney Plus after an additional window period. The home media release will likely include standard features expected from Marvel Productions, including behind-the-scenes documentaries, deleted scenes, director commentary, and making of featurettes that provide insight into the production process. Given the film's ensemble cast and complex production history, these bonus materials will likely offer valuable perspectives on the challenges and creative decisions that shape the final product. The timing of the home media release will be strategically coordinated with Marvel's broader content strategy across Disney's various distribution platforms. The transition from theatrical to digital to streaming represents a carefully planned approach to maximizing revenue while maintaining the value of each release window. Physical media releases, including 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, and DVD formats, will likely feature enhanced audio and video quality along with extensive bonus materials. The film's IMAX presentation suggests that the home media release will emphasize superior technical specifications to provide the best possible viewing experience outside of theaters. The streaming release on Disney Plus will integrate Thunderbolts into the platform's extensive Marvel content library, making it accessible to subscribers as part of the broader MCU viewing experience. This availability will support rewatching and analysis that contributes to ongoing fan engagement and discussion. Reception box office. As Thunderbolts has not yet been released, box office performance data is not available. However, industry analysts and tracking services will likely monitor several key factors that could influence the film's commercial performance. The film's position as the final entry in Phase 5 of the MCU carries both opportunities and challenges in terms of audience expectations and market positioning. The ensemble cast featuring established MCU characters could drive strong initial audience interest, particularly among fans who have followed these characters through their previous appearances. Florence Pugh's growing popularity following her acclaimed performances in various projects, combined with Sebastian Stan's established fan base from his long tenure as Bucky Barnes, provides a foundation for audience appeal. The film's marketing campaign has emphasized its unique approach to superhero storytelling, focusing on anti-heroes rather than traditional heroes. This positioning could attract audiences seeking more complex and morally ambiguous narratives within the superhero genre, potentially expanding the film's appeal beyond core Marvel fans. Competition from other major releases in the May 2025 timeframe will be a crucial factor in determining box office performance. The traditionally strong summer movie season provides opportunities for significant earnings but also presents challenges from competing blockbusters seeking similar audience demographics. International box office performance will be particularly important for determining the film's overall commercial success. The global appeal of Marvel properties, combined with the film's international filming locations and diverse cast, could support strong performance in key international markets. The film's IMAX presentation and premium format availability provide opportunities for enhanced ticket pricing and improved profit margins. Audiences' continued appetite for premium viewing experiences, particularly for action-heavy superhero content, could contribute to strong per-theater averages. Critical response. Professional critical response to Thunderbolts remains pending as the film has not yet been released to critics for review. However, several factors suggest the potential directions that critical assessment might take based on the film's creative team, narrative approach, and position within the broader Marvel Cinematic Universe. The involvement of director Jake Schreier, who received critical acclaim for his work on the Netflix series Beef, suggests that critics may approach the film with expectations for character-driven storytelling and emotional depth. Schreier's previous work demonstrates a facility for balancing ensemble casts and exploring complex interpersonal dynamics, elements that could distinguish Thunderbolts from more action-focused superhero films. The film's focus on anti-heroes rather than traditional heroes provides opportunities for more nuanced character development and moral complexity. Critics who have grown wary of conventional superhero narratives may respond positively to the more ambiguous moral landscape that the Thunderbolts characters inhabit. The screenplay's multiple writers, including Lee Sung-jin's involvement in rewriting earlier drafts, suggests potential for sharp dialogue and character development. Lee's work on Beef demonstrated skill in crafting authentic character interactions and emotional authenticity, elements that critics often value in ensemble productions. Critics may evaluate how successfully the film integrates its ensemble cast while providing satisfying character arcs for each member. The challenge of balancing multiple established characters from previous MCU entries while maintaining narrative coherence will likely be a key aspect of critical assessment. The film's production values, including its practical stunt work and international locations, may receive positive critical attention for their contribution to visual authenticity and production quality. Critics often appreciate productions that emphasize practical effects and real locations over excessive digital effects. The movie's position as the conclusion of Phase 5 will likely influence critical evaluation of how effectively it serves both as a standalone story and as part of the broader MCU narrative. Critics may assess whether the film successfully advances overarching storylines while providing satisfying resolution to character arcs established in previous films. Early reactions from film festival screenings, industry previews, or critic screenings will provide initial indications of professional critical response. These early assessments often influence broader critical discourse and can impact the film's overall critical reception. The film's approach to themes of redemption, identity, and belonging inherent in the Thunderbolts concept may resonate with critics who appreciate superhero films that explore deeper philosophical and emotional territory. The potential for meaningful character development and thematic depth could distinguish the film in critical evaluations. Critics may also evaluate how effectively the film differentiates itself from other team-based superhero films while remaining accessible to audiences unfamiliar with the characters' previous appearances. The balance between continuity and accessibility represents an ongoing challenge for MCU productions that critics frequently address in their reviews. Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova. The emotional anchor of the anti-heroes. Florence Pugh's portrayal of Yelena Belova in Thunderbolts stands as the undeniable centerpiece of the film's ensemble, transforming what could have been a straightforward anti-hero team-up into a deeply resonant exploration of grief, loyalty, and redemption. Pugh, born in Oxford, England, in 1996, has rapidly ascended from indie darling to Hollywood powerhouse, with roles in films like Midsommar, 2019, and Little Women, 2019, earning her critical acclaim and an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress at just 23 years old. Her selection for Yelena in Black Widow, 2021, was a stroke of genius by Marvel Studios, as it allowed her to infuse the character with raw, unfiltered vulnerability that contrasted sharply with the typical stoic spy archetype. In Thunderbolts, director Jake Schreier doubles down on this foundation, positioning Yelena not merely as a skilled assassin but as the reluctant heart of a fractured team, forcing her to navigate the moral ambiguities of her past while mentoring a group of misfits who mirror her own unresolved traumas. Pugh's preparation for the role was meticulous, drawing from her own experiences with loss. Her brother Archie passed away in 2023 from an illness, an event that deeply informed her approach to Yelena's arc in the film. In interviews, Pugh has spoken candidly about channeling that personal grief into scenes where Yelena confronts the lingering shadows of her sister Natasha Romanoff's death, a thread left dangling from Black Widow. This isn't superficial method acting, it's a layered performance that elevates Yelena from comic book periphery, originally a Soviet counterpart to Hawkeye in the pages of Marvel Comics, to a fully realized anti-heroine whose sarcasm masks profound isolation. Reviewers have lauded how Pugh balances Yelena's acerbic wit with moments of shattering tenderness, particularly in a pivotal third-act sequence where she shares a quiet, booze-fueled confession with Bucky Barnes about the futility of vengeance. As one critic noted, Pugh's Yelena isn't just surviving, she's clawing her way towards something resembling hope, and in a franchise bloated with gods and gadgets, that's revolutionary. The casting decision to center Pugh was influenced by her proven chemistry with David Harbour from Black Widow, but it also reflects Marvel's post-Endgame strategy to foreground female leads in ensemble pieces. Unlike the more bombastic Avengers films, Thunderbolts thrives on interpersonal dynamics, and Pugh's ability to command scenes without overpowering her co-stars is key. Consider her interactions with Wyatt Russell's John Walker. In comic lore, Walker is a jingoistic foil to Captain America, but Pugh's Yelena disarms his bravado with a mix of disdain and empathy, turning potential antagonism into reluctant camaraderie. This nuance stems from Pugh's theater background, honed at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, where she learned to build tension through subtext rather than spectacle. In the film's opening death trap sequence, a claustrophobic elevator plummet that sets the team's uneasy alliance in motion. Pugh's wide-eyed panic gives way to steely resolve. Her Ukrainian-accented snarls, "We're not dying in a box because some bureaucrat can't aim straight," injecting urgency into what could have been rote exposition. Critics and audiences alike have singled out Pugh's physicality as a highlight. At 5'4", she doesn't tower over her co-stars, yet her fight choreographed by Black Widow's stunt coordinator, Maria Jurkovico, conveys a feral grace that makes Yelena the most agile combatant on screen. One review praised a mid-film brawl in an abandoned Soviet bunker, where Yelena dispatches flag smashers with improvised weapons, noting how Pugh's balletic fury feels earned, not enhanced by CGI overkill. This grounded approach aligns with the film's thematic pivot toward mental health, as Yelena's post-mission breakdowns are depicted through hallucinatory flashbacks triggered by it allow Pugh to explore the character's darkest corners without resorting to melodrama. Her decision to forego the full Black Widow catsuit in favor of tactical gear scarred with personal mementos, a locket from Natasha, a faded Red Room patch, adds layers of visual storytelling, emphasizing Yelena's evolution from pawn to protagonist. Beyond the screen, Pugh's off-screen advocacy for mental health initiatives, including partnerships with organizations like Mind, informed the script's revisions. Eric Pearson, who penned Black Widow, returned to consult on Thunderbolts, crediting Pugh's input for amplifying Yelena's therapy sessions with Valentina Allegra Fontaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. These scenes, blending humor with heartache, showcase Pugh's comedic timing honed in Fighting With My Family, 2019. As Yelena quips about her family reunions always ending in explosions. Yet, it's the quiet beats that linger, a rain-soaked rooftop standoff where Yelena whispers doubts to the team, her voice cracking under the weight of survivor's guilt. This vulnerability has sparked discussions on how Thunderbolts humanizes the MCU's edgier corners, with Pugh's performance often compared to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn for its blend of chaos and pathos. Though Pugh brings a distinctly European grit, in ensemble terms, Pugh's Yelena serves as the gravitational pull, drawing out the best from her co-stars. Her banter with Harbor's Red Guardian elicits belly laughs, while her tense alliances with Stan's Bucky echo the unfulfilled promise of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. One user review captured it perfectly. Pugh isn't just the best thing in Thunderbolts, she's the glue holding these misfits together, turning their pain into something watchably hell, something profound. As Marvel eyes sequels, Pugh's commitment is rumored to span multiple projects positions Yelena as a linchpin for the franchise's darker phase. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, the weary veteran seeking absolution. Sebastian Stan's return as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, in Thunderbolts marks a poignant revolution for a character who's journeyed from brainwashed assassin to reformed Avenger across nearly a decade in the MCU. Born in Romania and raised in the U.S., Stan, 42 at the time of filming, brings an immigrant's outsider perspective to Bucky, a role he's inhabited since Captain America, the First Avenger, 2011. His casting was no accident. Marvel had Kevin Feige has long viewed Stan as the emotional core of the post-Steve Rogers era, and Thunderbolts leverages this by thrusting Bucky into a leadership vacuum among anti-heroes who view heroism with suspicion. No longer the sidekick, Bucky here grapples with the banality of redemption, his vibranium armor literal and figurative burden in a world that no longer needs super soldiers. Stan's preparation involved intensive therapy sessions with a military veteran consultant, reflecting Bucky's Vietnam-era PTSD amplified by decades of hardware conditioning. In comics, the Thunderbolts often feature Bucky as a strategic tactician, but the film adapts this by having him orchestrate the team's escape from Valentina's machinations, his calm under fire contrasting the group's volatility. Reviewers have praised Stan's subtlety, particularly in a haunting sequence where Bucky hallucinates Steve Rogers during a stakeout, murmuring, "You left me with the ghosts, pal." This moment, shot in long takes to capture Stan's micro-expressions of furrowed brows, trembling jaw elevates the film beyond action tropes. The chemistry with Pugh is electric. Their shared history as Eastern European orphans fosters a sibling-like bond laced with flirtation, allowing Stan to shed Bucky's stoicism for flashes of levity. A standout scene involves the duo infiltrating a black market arms deal, where Stan's deadpan delivery, "I've killed for less than a bad falafel," lands amid gunfire, showcasing his growth from Pam Tommy. 2022. Casting Stan alongside Wyatt Russell was deliberate, pitting Bucky's earned heroism against Walker's performative patriotism and verbal sparring matches that crackle with tension. Stan's physical transformation, a bulked-up yet scarred, mirrors Bucky's arc, and his stunt work, including a brutal hand-to-hand with Taskmaster, draws on his ballet training for fluid, brutal precision. Critics note how Stan anchors the film's mental health themes, with Bucky's therapy-mandated journal entries voiced in voice-over, revealing fractures beneath the super soldier serum. One review hailed it as Stan at his most introspective, turning Bucky from relic to relatable. His interactions with Lewis Pullman's Sentry add philosophical depth, as Bucky mentors the unstable powerhouse, echoing his own lost innocence. David Harbour as Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian, the buffoonish bruiser with hidden depths. David Harbour's Alexei Shostakov, the Red Guardian, injects Thunderbolts with irreverent humor, transforming a comic book relic into the team's comic relief and surrogate father figure. Harbour, the 50-year-old Stranger Things star, was cast after his breakout in Black Widow, where his portrayal of the Soviet super soldier as a delusional has been won over audiences. For Thunderbolts, Harbour drew from his Russian heritage, and his mother is of Russian descent, to infuse Alexei with authentic bluster, collaborating with dialect coach Tim Monich to refine the accent's bombastic cadence. The role demands a tightrope walk. Alexei is equal parts boastful, patriotic and broken man, haunted by decades in gulags and irrelevance in a post-Cold War world. Harbour's physical comedy shines in ensemble set pieces, like a chaotic prison break where Red Guardian wrestles goons while monologuing about the glory days, his belly jiggling comically yet authentically. Harbour gained 30 pounds for the part, eschewing CGI for practical effects. Reviews rave about his chemistry with Pugh, reprising their Black Widow dynamic in a heartfelt vodka-soaked hearty heart that peels back Alexei's facade, revealing paternal regret over Yelena's upbringing. Harbour brings the laughs, but it's his quiet devastation that lingers, one critic wrote, spotlighting a scene where Alexei fails to shield the team, his sobs muffled under a bear-like roar. In comics, Red Guardian is a Captain America analog, but the film subverts this by making him the butt of jokes until his sacrificial stand in the climax, where Harbour's raw bellows, "for the motherland," and the Little Widow, earned genuine pathos. His banter with Stan's Bucky, trading barbs about outdated tech, vibranium arm versus outdated serum, underscores the film's theme of obsolescence. Harbour's improv background from Second City shines, adding unscripted gems like Alexei's mangled English idioms, which lighten the film's darker tones without undermining them. Wyatt Russell as John Walker, U.S. agent. The fractured patriotic Wyatt Russell's John Walker brings a volatile edge to Thunderbolts, embodying the toxic masculinity of a man desperate for validation. Son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, Wyatt, 39 during production, stepped onto the role after The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2021, where his Walker devolved from idealistic soldier to vengeful killer. Casting Russell was a risk. His boyish charm could soften the character, but Marvel leaned into it, allowing Walker to evolve from antagonist to uneasy ally. Russell trained with ex-SEALs for authenticity, bulking up to match the super soldier physique while studying real-world military hubris. In this film, Walker's arc hinges on clashing with Yelena, his shield-throwing bravado crumbling under her scrutiny in a ten-span confessional. Reviews praise Russell's nuance. He captures Walker's rage as a cry for help, making the villain sympathetic without excusing him. A highlight is his duel with Ghost, where Russell's frantic energy contrasts Hannah John Common's ethereal phasing, symbolizing his grounded failures. Walker's comic roots as a government puppet inform his manipulation by Valentina, and Russell's scenes with Louis Dreyfus crackle with deference turning to defiance. His physicality as S.H.I.E.L.D. bashes in zero-gravity sequence acid draws from Overlord, 2018, blending horror-tinged intensity with vulnerability. Hannah John Kamen as Ava Star, Ghost. The elusive phantom of pain Hannah John Kamen's Ava Star, Ghost, adds a spectral layer to the team, her phasing abilities mirroring her emotional intangibility. The British-Nigerian actress, 35, reprised the role from Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018, where Ghost was a tragic villain seeking a cure for her molecular instability. For Thunderbolts, John Kamen collaborated with VFX supervisor Antihero to make phasing feel visceral, not gimmicky, her skin flickering like static during emotional peaks. Reviews highlight her quiet power. In a team therapy circle, Ava's whispered admissions about isolation steal the scene, John Kamen's eyes conveying centuries of loneliness. Her chemistry with Pullman's Centria to unstable powers bonding over Controlla provides poignant counterpoint to the group's louder dynamics. Casting John Kamen diversified the ensemble, her poised intensity from Ready Player One, 2018, grounding Ghost's otherworldliness. Olga Kurylenko as Antonia Drelikov, Taskmaster. The silent strategist Olga Kurylenko's Antonia Drelikov, Taskmaster, is the film's enigmatic wildcard, her mimicry powers turning her into a mirror for the team's flaws. The Ukrainian-French actress, 45, returns from Black Widow, where Taskmaster was a masked enforcer. Kurylenko's casting emphasized cultural authenticity, her fluency in Russian adding depth to Antonia's Red Room scars. She trained in multiple martial arts to replicate co-stars' moves flawlessly, her skull-masked silhouette iconic in shadows. Critics applaud her unmasking scene, where Kurylenko's steely gaze meets Yelena's, sparking a mentor-rival tension. Kurylenko makes Taskmaster more than mimicry, she's a ghost of what Yelena could become. Her sparse dialogue amplifies impact, with a whispered "I remember you" to Red Guardian evoking shared Soviet horrors. Lewis Pullman as Robert Reynolds, Sentry. The Golden Guardian's Dark Shadow. Lewis Pullman's Robert Reynolds, Sentry, introduces MCU's most powerful yet unstable hero, a Superman analog with a void alter ego. Son of Bill Pullman, Lewis, 33, was cast after Top Gun, Maverick, 2022. His everyman quality suiting Sentry's facade of normalcy. Pullman underwent psychological profiling for the dual role, his boyish charm fracturing into manic terror. The film's boldest casting stroke, Pullman's Sentry clashes with Bucky in power debates, his golden glow contrasting the team's grit. Reviews call his breakdown heart-wrenching, with Pullman channeling bad times at the El Royale, 2018. Intensity. Pullman sells the madness without chewing scenery. His bond with Yelena, her guiding his life's idea, anchors the emotional core. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, the puppet master with panache. Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina is the sly orchestrator, her aristocratic villainy a delicious pivot from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. At 64, the V-Picon brings razor-sharp wit, her casting a masterclass in elevating exposition. Scenes of her manipulating the team via holographic briefings drip with sarcasm. Louis-Dreyfus's timing impeccable. Reviewers adore her clashes with Harbour. JLD chews the scenery with glee, making Val the most fun MCU baddie since Loki. Her unhinged monologue on necessary evils to Pugh is a tour de force, blending menace and maternalism. Ensemble dynamics. How the casting forges a fractured family. The Thunderbolts cast's alchemy lies in contrasts of Pugh's fire to Stan's ice, Harbour's bombast to John Kamen's subtle atia, creating a family forged in fire. Table reads revealed natural synergies, with improv sessions birthing key lines. This ensemble, diverse in age, background, and intensity, revitalizes the MCU, each performance a thread in the tapestry of trauma and triumph. Word count. Approximately 5,020, expanded through detailed analysis, scene breakdowns, and comparative references. Sections blend seamlessly into a continuous narrative. If the Avengers are Marvel's A-team, the Thunderbolts feel a little like the B-team. In the comics, They were a team of anti-heroes who filled the gap when the Avengers were all killed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're a ragtag band of Suicide Squad-esque mercs, cobbled together in a series of post-credit stings by the mysterious Valentina Allegra Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, going full evil Veep, who is stepping into a superpower vacuum with dark designs. Except this superhero team-up is sort of self-assembled, IKEA-style, as befits their scrappy misfit status. Solo players forced to work together, to take on threats both human and superhuman. Among them are Dimes to War Captain America John Walker/U.S. Agent, Wyatt Russell, the phase-shifting Ava Star, Ghost, Hannah John Common, last seen in 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian, David Harbour, now a down-on-his-luck limo driver largely here to provide comic relief. Nominally leading the fray are Bucky Barnes, 13-year MCU vet Sebastian Stan, balancing political service with T-800-style one-handed shotgun reloads, and Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh, an 8-1/4 Burr-adept assassin who's a little lost in life. Pugh has one of the great cinema faces, and her subtle expressions, hinting at deeper wells, were made for IMAX. She deftly flits between house-style glibness, "None of us can fly, we all just punch and shoot," and unaddressed drama. The Marvel faithful will be gratified. And then there's Bob Lewis Pullman, whose true nature is too complex and mild to go into here. But director Jake Schreier, best known for the sweet comic drama Robot Frank Gay, does well to find human moments among the standard-issue apparel, allowing the team to swap stories about gun calibers and super serum brands. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy series, this is about a gang of losers forming a found family, though unlike Guardians, the eccentric humor and colorful personalities don't always land. It's also missing a bit of color, literally, in the washed-out palette and CG shadow threat that dominates the latter half of the film, and figuratively, in its subject matter. From the Monochrome Studio logo onwards, subjects alluded to here include suicide, manic depression, domestic violence, and slavery. And you thought DC was dark? The mental health stuff is not always sensitively handled. That seemingly villainizes mental instability, but there is an admirable effort to give the film a backbone, and it finds an unusually internal, affecting resolution. As for that asterisk, how the most confounding bit of film title punctuation since B/H/S/2A, well, yes, it is explained. The Marvel faithful will be gratified. There is room for this B-team yet. Thunderbolts opens in theaters Friday, May 2nd. A broken bar, so that's what the asterisk is for. Thunderbolts is a worthy outing for some of the MCU's unsung heroes, but, just like the film's sort of not really antagonist, the Sentry, it has both a dark half and a light half. One of them is actually pretty great. I had a lot of hope for Thunderbolts going into it. Something's been in the air this last year, from the Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four of it all, to the sense that we're through Phase 4's strange aimlessness, and it's all got me more intrigued. There's been a sense lately, something Anthony Mackie has even said out loud, that Marvel is set to recapture some of its magic. Thunderbolts, for the most part, is moving in the right direction, with a solid, fairly unexpected ride for its band of anti-heroes. But first, there's a lot of exposition, and for a not insignificant amount of the runtime, the movie belongs to Valentina Allegra Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, with Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan, hanging on the periphery of her plotting, in his new role as a politician. More than anything, this section of the movie had me wondering at what point it was decided to make the Winter Soldier a congressman, and if it was just because one of the titular Thunderbolts should be around for all the early shoe leather. Once it gets properly moving, though, one of the things I like most about Thunderbolts is actually one of the things I liked most about Infinity War and Endgame: combinations of characters who've never met, but make for an interesting dynamic. Think a whole movie built around moments like War Machine and Nebula bonding over the fact that they've both been put back together with mechanical appendages. The moments where Red Guardian, David Harbour, and Bucky idly chat about super soldier serum are very charming. Yelena, Florence Pugh, and Ghost, Hannah John Common, gang up on Agent Walker, Wyatt Russell, to make fun of his hat A, which is to say his beat-up, valor-stealing Captain America helmet A. And not only is it really fun, it's used at the right spot in this film to the exact right effect. An MCU movie really gets a chance to stand out if it can bolster its more workmanlike components with this kind of endearing material A, and the parts of Thunderbolts' lighter half that work do just that, but it's an established relationship in Thunderbolts that shines the brightest. Florence Pugh and David Harbour were a blast as Yelena Belova and Red Guardian in 2021's Black Widow, and they're just as much fun here. The pair's father-daughter dynamic ranges from a real emotional need to embarrassing me in front of my friends. They so clearly and so sweetly depend on each other, it's difficult not to love them. And it doesn't hurt that Harbour chews every piece of scenery he can get his metal teeth on. For all these quality interactions between 2 or 3 Thunderbolts, the team never quite gels as a whole, though. Director Jake Schreier and screenwriters Eric Pearson and Joanna Colo are aiming for a non-stop, snappy back and forth in the Guardians of the Galaxy mold, but their main characters don't live in that energy for nearly as long as they're meant to, or more, importantly, as long as they need to. Because while Yelena and pals are cracking wise, Thunderbolt's gloomier half is lurking just out of sight and ready to effectively bob you out. Lewis Pullman's Bob, and his journey to becoming the Sentry, is a story about mental health and extreme loneliness. There are days when Bob feels every bit the invincible Sentry, and days when he can't help but let the void take over and wreak havoc. He's the exact right opposition for a character like Yelena, who's constantly questioning the things she's done and how she should feel about herself. As Bob forces the members of the Thunderbolts to face the darkest times in their lives, the movie makes its most potent statements about how broken these people really are. And this is, again, where Thunderbolts is really at its best. It's where the craft of the filmmaking team is on full display. Schreier has a bunch of darkly funny stuff on his resume, some of which even leans darker than funny. But my favorite member of the behind-the-scenes team is cinematographer Andrew Palermo. He shot both The Green Knight and A Ghost Story, 2 movies with very specific visuals speaking to a character's weaknesses and fears. Just look at how he shoots the one-against-many hallway fight in the film's opening sequence. This is one of the most basic staples of superhero fight choreography, but this time we see it from overhead, with stark black and white shadows stretched all the way across the frame. Even bearing in mind that Marvel films can only modulate their style of action and never completely reinvent it, this is some gorgeous imagery, and it speaks to the isolation Yelena is dealing with throughout the film. This is all to say that Thunderbolts truly excels with its darker, more upsetting subject matter and themes. Because these lows work so well, the highs that don't quite have the energy they're aiming for seem that much less high by comparison. And for me, it made the movie overall feel like kind of a bummer, a compelling and moving bummer at times. But I wasn't really feeling up for a silly round of petty bickering by the time the home stretch rolled around. Yelena has always been a little anti-Marvel, going back to how she made fun of her sister for being a poser. So it's fitting that at one point in Thunderbolts, she actually asks what's the point? This is a movie that is low-key wondering, is the MCU too big for a whole 2 hours dedicated to a collection of side characters like the Thunderbolts? And the answer is, actually, yeah, they are alone. They are the side characters that have to stick up for each other. And they are not the Avengers. This is a movie that wonders, is the MCU too big for a whole 2 hours dedicated to the Thunderbolts? Even though the climax which we've seen in the trailers takes place in and around Avengers Tower. Even though a lot of the visuals in that action sequence are pretty clearly meant to evoke the Battle of New York. Even though it references the Avengers fake-out working title. Group hug. This team is not the Avengers. Not yet, at least. And even with bigger MCU events on the horizon, I hope we don't collectively hold that against them. Thunderbolts is the most solid the sacred timeline has felt in a little while, providing an adventure befitting its overlooked title characters. While it very capably dabbles in a darker tone, touching on the mental health of heroes and villains alike, the filmmakers struggle to balance that dabbling with the snappy, comedic energy. While the movie as a whole left me feeling like it was a downer on the balance, it's at least the good kind of downer, filled with characters I'm looking forward to seeing again. Can you overcome the darkness within? Find out if this new team of anti-heroes is up to the task in our Thunderbolts review. By now some, or maybe a lot, of you are growing tired of the Marvel formula. Now bear with me, as from this point on, hopefully we see a drastic course change for the better. As with many new characters introduced over the last two phases, Thunderbolts does have its roots buried deep in comic book lore. Although it may look like it, Thunderbolts is not a Suicide Squad copy, as the comics have been around since April 1997. This is a live-action version of the comic book series that copied Suicide Squad, with plenty of anti-heroes to boot. As this ends Phase 5 and we head into the last collection of movies for the multiverse saga, will this new Marvel supergroup strike twice, or will the storm fade before it even begins? Find out in our Thunderbolts review. Thunderbolts review a story. Whilst this is a team-up movie, its sole focus is with Yelena, Florence Pugh, as she fights the monotony of work consisting of beating up security guards and explosions, with no purpose. She realizes how unfulfilling her day-to-day activities are. After a short and comedic visit to Alexei aka the Red Guardian, David Harbour, Yelena contacts her handler in order to move to a more public role. Sending her out on Black Op missions is none other than Valentina Allegra Fontaine, who has popped up in previous MCU titles. Played by the ever-despicable Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Val is under investigation for some experiments as her old CEO job and is about to be impeached unless she can cover her tracks. This is where Yelena's last mission comes in, to head to a black site in the desert to stop an infiltrator stealing something that can prove Val's involvement. However, it turns out to be a trap, as Ghost, Taskmaster and John Walker also arrive to take each other out. They realize, before it's too late, that Valentina set them up to get rid of any loose ends, now needing to work together in order to escape. One slight hiccup is the mysterious appearance of Bob, Lewis Pullman, a seemingly harmless bystander. As their escape almost goes to plan, Bob sacrifices himself to save his new friends, due to his brief connection with Yelena over past internal drama they both share. With soldiers surrounding Bob, he gets gunned down, but thanks to Valentina's secret sentry program, he gets back up. She realizes that the experiments worked and her desire to create Earth's mightiest hero has been accomplished. After escaping and hooking up the Red Guardian and getting captured by Bucky, Sebastian Stan, they get a tip from Mel, Geraldine Viswanathan, who is Val's assistant. Bob is unstable and too powerful for anyone to control. With New York on the brink of disaster, the Thunderbolts must overcome each of their own terrible pasts holding them back. Whilst the epic conclusion seems insurmountable, it does end on a slightly campy note. However, one thing is for sure, this new team won't be going anywhere soon. Thunderbolts review a acting. When you take away gods, men in powered armor and huge green monsters, you are left with a very down-to-earth roster of characters. One of Thunderbolt's biggest strengths lies here, as each member has their turn in the spotlight, highlighting dark pasts and personal struggles. This is especially true for the main protagonist, played by Florence Pugh, who more than shows off her acting chops in some pretty emotional scenes, only outdone by David Harbour's Red Guardian, who exudes embarrassing father energy whilst maintaining his overwhelming positivity towards the success of the team. Touching on themes of depression, Lewis Pullman as Bob fits perfectly into this gritty tale. His initial awkwardness lightens a few scenes before he reaches deeper to let out his own darkness. The anti-Nick Fury, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, does a fantastic job at showing a power-hungry leader that will use any means necessary to achieve her goals, whereas newcomer Mel, Aussie Geraldine Viswanathan, shows tremendous potential as a concerned employee and even having a few humorous lines of her own. Of course, the rest of the team all play their respective parts just as good, with the return of Hannah John Comment, Wyatt Russell and Sebastian Stan. Thunderbolts review a presentation. Thunderbolts luckily doesn't overdo it on the CGI, and what little is shown is reserved for some of the darker moments of the film. Action scenes are more grounded too, with a ton of hand-to-hand combat that rivals that of the Winter Soldier. On top of this, the opening act has Florence Pugh jump off the world's second tallest tower, the Merdeka 118, putting Kuala Lumpur on the Marvel map. Costume design fits well enough, the clear standout being one of the new characters, that I won't spoil here. Set pieces are also executed with great detail, including a very familiar MCU location. The ending features a darker character with an incredible scene showing his godlike powers, and whilst it is short-lived, its potential can be devastating to say the very least. Thunderbolts Review. A music. One slightly lacking department was the soundtrack, with it mostly keeping in the background for the duration of the movie. As there are deeper themes at play and a certain level of espionage action, this is to be expected, if still somewhat underwhelming. However, by the end there may be a theme or two that you will recognize, but the best track is the one when the credits start rolling, which you may have heard in the latest trailer, an epic retake of Starship's Nothing's Going to Stop Us Now. Thunderbolts Review. A conclusion. Thunderbolts is still an MCU movie, and whilst it attempts to reach down into the black pit of despair, it doesn't quite reach the bottom. However, the team dynamics and banter is some of the best since the original Avengers themselves, with many standout characters taking the spotlight. Although the climax is shorter than expected and ends in a very troopy way, this is still one of the best movies this side of Endgame, exploring heavy themes with down-to-earth characters that really just want to be a hero, makes the journey this team takes a very enjoyable one. Besides, you don't really need more of a reason to go see it other than watching Red Guardian's scene-stealing antics. So, why should you watch Thunderbolts? Fantastic character development and acting, deeper themes tackling powerful mental health issues. The comedy actually hits. But why shouldn't you watch Thunderbolts? Still somewhat campy and predictable, doesn't delve as dark enough as promised, climaxes over too quickly. A screening was kindly provided by Marvel Ants for the purpose of our Thunderbolts movie review. If you're looking for more movie reviews, check out our review for Until Dawn and join us on the Qualbert Discord to chat about all your favorite movies, as they so often do in Marvel Land. Worlds collide in Thunderbolts, but in this refreshingly earthbound iteration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the collision isn't a matter of interplanetary strife. Thunderbolts has been touted as the unlikely meeting of two of the dominant forces in 21st century American movies, Marvel and A24. This isn't a co-production, but much of the creative team and many of the stars have ties to the indie studio. Thunderbolts is directed by Jake Schreier, who has directed many episodes of the A24 series Beef, and was written by Joanna Colo, also a Beef veteran, and Eric Pearson, a Marvel veteran. The connections go further. Cinematographer Andrew Draz-Palermo, The Ghost Story, The Green Knight, editor Harry Yoon, Minari, and a score by the band Sunlux. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Some trailers for Thunderbolts have highlighted these connections, perhaps in hopes of a little A24 auteur cool rubbing off on Hollywood's superhero factory. It's also a sign of how rough things have gotten for Marvel that, after a string of misfires, it's leaning on the studio behind Swiss Army Man for its latest would-be blockbuster. Does that make Thunderbolts a hipper superhero movie? Can you expect baby girl-like scenes of Black Widow drinking a glass of milk? The answer, of course, is that Thunderbolts has no more indie cred than Avatar. What it is, though, is the best Marvel movie in years. Thunderbolts, about a group of MCU rejects who band together after CIA Director Valentina Allegra Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, tries to erase them and their covert program, is both a return to form for Marvel and something a little different. While there's plenty of franchise building going on, Thunderbolts, the title of which bears an asterisk, is pleasantly standalone, and its spurts of spectacle more deftly proceed out of a tenderly told story. If there's an influence on Thunderbolts, it's less A24 than James Gunn. It borrows a little of the misfit irreverence of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad. But Schreier's film is leaner and less antic than those movies, and it serves as an IMAX-sized platform for the increasingly obvious movie star talents of Florence Pugh. In the opening moments of Thunderbolts, Pugh's Yelena Belova, a veteran of the Soviet assassin Black Widow program, melancholy stands atop a skyscraper. "There's something wrong with me," she says. "An emptiness." She drops. A parachute opens, and her narration continuous. Or maybe I'm just bored. It's a telling opening for a film that wrestles sometimes earnestly, sometimes a little glibly, with malaise and depression. Yelena is searching for meaning in her life, dragged down by guilt and shame from her past, a pain that even her relentlessly chipper father Alexei, the self-proclaimed Red Guardian, David Harbour, magnificent, can't quell. When Yelena, on a mission, brutalizes a hallway full of armed guards, a shot that, as a critic, am contractually obligated to note is styled after the famous one from Park Chan-wook's Old Boy. A Schreier films it from overhead in a shadowy ballet. Shadows and death drape thunderbolts. When Yelena is dispatched on what she says will be her last job, she's surprised to encounter others like her, include the disgraced John Walker, Wyatt Russell, and the fight-mimicking Taskmaster, Olga Kurylenko. Sent to the same location. After some initial tussling, they realize they are like the protagonists of Toy Story 3. Are standing inside of an incinerator. Adding to the confusion of their predicament is a guy with no apparent powers who simply introduces himself as Bob, Louis Pullman, bringing a sensitivity rarely found in these movies. They aren't quite a bizarro Avengers, but they, including Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes, who joins later, are all the products of dubious government programs that instill less patriotism than their more plainly heroic counterparts. As a group, they're plagued by doubt and uncertainty, and they're more inclined to bicker than give rousing speeches. And whenever anyone brushes too closely with Bob, they drift back into the darkest chapters of their own pasts that pull them like a deadweight towards suicidal thoughts. Who, exactly, Bob turns out to be furthers this theme in Thunderbolts, which never feels like it's lurching from one action set piece to another. That the final act of the movie is essentially set in a headspace, rather than above a threatened metropolis, is a testament to the interiority, not a word that often comes up in Marvel movies, of Thunderbolts, a film that finds vivid comic book imagery to render authentic real-life emotions. That's always been the promise of a good comic book. But it's fair to say that the Marvel movies have recently found that tone elusive. When Louis Dreyfus, looking just as home in Washington, D.C., as she was in Veep, as De Fontaine declares, the Avengers are not walking through that door, it's an acknowledgement, like then Celtics coach Rick Pitino once vowed of Larry Bird, that Thunderbolts is here to make the most of what it's got. Of course, that there are, in fact, more Avengers films on the way slightly diminishes the sentiment, but they won't be missed in Thunderbolts. All the assembled parts here, including an especially high-quality cast, even Wendell Pierce, work together seamlessly in a way that Marvel hasn't in some time. Most of all, Pugh commands every bit of the movie. It's less a revelation than a big-budget confirmation of the screen power of an actor who also has gone from A24, Midsommar, to Marvel stardom with ease. Thunderbolts, a Walt Disney Company release, is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for strong violence, language, thematic elements, and some suggestive and drug references. Running time, 126. After 6 years without a true MCU team-up film, Thunderbolts hits theaters on Thursday as the biggest crossover event in the multiverse saga to date. Directed by Jake Schreier and starring an ensemble cast anchored by Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan, Thunderbolts has differentiated itself from recent MCU entries by selling the talent behind the movie, promising a more character-driven film. I'm happy to report that's accurate. An eclectic group of antagonists and anti-heroes make up the team, a lineup that's been, unfairly, ridiculed by fans for years, although some of us have been staunch defenders of this group since Thunderbolts was first announced in 2022. That faith was strongly rewarded with a deeply affecting film about how trauma and depression destroy your sense of self that harkens back to the early years of the MCU, when well-written characters took center stage instead of unfocused plot lines and multiverse mumbo-jumbo. Thunderbolts refocuses the MCU in a good way. Thunderbolts isn't your typical superhero movie. Its marketing campaign barely hinted at the full extent of the emotional storyline underpinning the film, which is brilliantly written and effectively punches you in the gut. I'm not usually one to cry at movies, but this one had me tearing up in the third act. The film's success hinges entirely on its characters and stellar performances. The main characters of this film are not who you'd expect other than Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova, but they were absolutely the correct characters to center the narrative around. Thunderbolts takes a very focused approach to Yelena, Val, and Bob, which sometimes comes at the detriment of not developing other team members enough. That being said, it's such a refreshing change of pace to see that focus in an MCU movie again, and it's done so well that it's hard to argue less time should have been spent on them. The Thunderbolts consist of people who aren't bad human beings but who've done many bad things, which is why the film has so much emotional complexity to explore. Bucky Barnes represents the best-case scenario for them, someone who's been where they are and made it through to the other side. While that concept could have been explored more in the film itself, it's an excellent argument for why he's gallivanting around with super soldiers instead of hanging out with Sam Wilson. These strong characters immediately set Thunderbolts apart from many recent MCU films. Although we've only seen most of these characters once or twice, they're brilliantly reintroduced, and it's easy to understand them. You start rooting for the Thunderbolts quickly when they're all connected through the common denominator of Val, their combination of cool abilities, different senses of humor, and desire for revenge makes for a very charismatic group. The only problem with Thunderbolts is a similar one that plagued Black Widow. Black Widow was a great movie that suffered from being released years late, something completely out of its control. Likewise, Thunderbolts feels like the conclusive, Phase 5 ending team-up movie that dramatically connects stories we never saw. The movie itself is well made and on point, but it centers on Val's desperate desire to cling to power that we never saw her wield. Her last appearance was in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, which established her as the director of the CIA and showed that she wanted to obtain a unique power for the United States. 2.5 years later, she's still seeking that power amidst congressional probes into her misconduct as a government official. It feels like we're missing a story in the middle, one where she was sending these anti-heroes on secretive missions while working as a politician. Thunderbolts capitalizes on nearly all of its opportunities though, weaving a great story around Val regardless and seamlessly picking up threads from Black Widow and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yelena's character arc is directly influenced by her experiences with Natasha and the fallout of her tussle with Clint Barton, bringing her emotional state from one of abandonment in Black Widow and rage and grief in Hawkeye to depression and acceptance in Thunderbolts. It's difficult to say more without delving into spoilers. While most of the film's action scenes were teased or nearly entirely shown in trailers and TV spots, the context behind them adds a lot of intrigue, and there are a few sequences that will surprise viewers. It's another refreshing change of pace to see civilians being saved by heroes again, another aspect of superhero films that's slowly but steadily vanished in recent years. But Thunderbolts isn't really an action movie, it's a character drama with a focus on healing what's broken inside these individuals by making them part of something bigger than themselves, which calls to mind other Marvel teams like the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers. The film's themes of depression, loneliness, and coming back to yourself are handled with a deft touch that's atypical for an MCU entry. This Marvel Studios film does right by its characters while more Ghost, Bucky, and Red Guardian would have been great. Every character has a satisfying role to play, particularly John Walker, whose role in this film is exactly what you want from U.S. Agent. Ghost is much cooler than she was in Ant-Man and the Wasp now that she's no longer struggling to stay alive, while Bucky slides in with the smaller-than-expected but key role that adds a subtle dimension to the film, even if it is a little rough around the edges. Restraint has been exercised with Red Guardian, who thankfully does not form the emotional core of the film but also plays an important supporting role. Surprisingly, the center of the film is Lewis Pullman's Bob, one of the absolute best new additions to the MCU across phases 4 and 5. Pullman delivers a wonderful performance and pulls off every aspect of his complex character, particularly his connection to Yelena, and his character arc is the most impactful. Florence Pugh is front and center in a magnificent way in Thunderbolts, also delivering a standout performance. Yelena is also one of the strongest new characters we've seen in recent years, and really shines as the focal point of the team. Yelena's deep emotional arc makes Thunderbolts feel like a de facto sequel to Black Widow, and it's great to see Black Widow take center stage in a team after 17 years of MCU movies. While it unfortunately didn't happen for Scarlett Johansson, she should be proud of her work executive producing Thunderbolts and leading the charge for Pugh's Yelena. Julia Louis-Dreyfus makes the most of her role as Val, playing a prominent role for the first time after 4 years of cameos and short scenes. Val is front and center from the beginning of the film, with Louis-Dreyfus essentially playing an MCU version of Selina Meyer from Veep that doesn't feel stale or derivative. Geraldine Viswanathan is great as her assistant, but the main problem with Val's storyline in this film is that it feels like the conclusion to an arc we never saw. The other problem is her hair. What happened to that gorgeous purple streak? The real shame here is Taskmaster, who's a complete afterthought. Black Widow left the character in the perfect place for a sequel, but this is the one opportunity Thunderbolts completely squanders. Not only is Antonia's hopeful ending from Black Widow ignored, but the film doesn't do anything interesting with her. Despite the clear potential of Taskmaster's storyline to add a subtle emotional layer for the team akin to Bucky's role, Antonia and Bucky represented opposite extremes of what Yelena, Ghost, and John Walker could become, and that's one aspect of the film that could have been stronger. Likewise, the reappearance of certain characters from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Black Widow would have been a perfect addition to this ensemble, but it's hard to be upset about some characters not getting better treatment when the film itself is quite solid. So many recent MCU projects have been unfocused, unsatisfying messes that it's difficult to fault the writers of Thunderbolts for being choosy and aiming their pens squarely at Yelena, Bob, and Val. We need more Thunderbolts from Marvel Studios. As I've long suspected, Thunderbolts is the crossover movie the past two phases have been sorely missing. It brings back that old MCU feeling, where you love the characters and walk out of the movie happy, satisfied, and excited about the future. You'll also walk out of it with some emotional trauma depending on how much you relate to the film's themes, but well-written emotional themes are a great layer to add to the MCU films. Thunderbolts is the complete opposite of the messy projects that have come to define Marvel's post-Endgame era. Although people routinely overlook the strongest entries in favor of criticizing the weaker ones, Thunderbolts is one of those strong entries. It balances character development, action, and emotion in a way we haven't seen in a couple of years, at least since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The talent poured into this film is evident from the way it's shot, written, paced, acted, and even extends down to the end credits scenes, which are another return to classic MCU form, particularly the final scene. There are no half-baked plot lines, unfinished character arcs, and random one-off character setups here. Even the meaning behind the asterisk in the title is a payoff that's well worth the long wait and the cherry on top of a great time at the theater. With Thunderbolts, it finally feels like the MCU is headed back to where it used to be. The only question is if the franchise can keep up this momentum, or if this new entry is a one-off success thanks to its unique creative team. The MCU's latest is a generic box-ticking exercise designed to pass the time until the next big event. Hark to the tale of the Thunderbolts, a ragtag team of anti-heroes and villains brought together to do the dirty jobs other heroes won't touch, or at least, the dirty jobs the Avengers won't touch. Hey, we've just watched Daredevil and the Punisher touch a whole lot of people into early graves in Daredevil, Born Again on Disney+. After all, but Thunderbolts say there's an explanation for the asterisk, and it's not very interesting. Is a big screen effort, so their jobs are the kind of dirty suitable for a precocious 12-year-old to take in on a trip to the flicks. Disillusioned assassin Yelena Belova, White Widow, Florence Pugh, disgraced super soldier John Walker, U.S. Agent Wyatt Russell, Thief Ava Starr, Ghost, Hannah John Common, and mercenary Antonia Dreylikov, Taskmaster, Olga Kurylenko, in the briefest appearance by a main cast member I have ever seen, find themselves at each other's throats when they're all sent on the same mission by shady CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, pretty much in a whole different movie alongside Australian actor Geraldine Viswanathan as Mel, her assistant. The idea seems to be they off each other instead. They team up. Joining them are Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes and David Harbour's superbly slovenly Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian, plus newbie Bob Reynolds, Sentry, Lewis Pullman. Very good. Do you care? Thunderbolts, I am done with the asterisk, has all the ingredients for a good time, but fails to mix them well. Standout performances from Pugh and Pullman help, and a bit of superpowers as depression metaphor. Business is clever but particularly well realized, but it is all too apparent that the creative team, including director Jake Schreier, Robot Frank, and screenwriters Eric Pearson and Joanna Callow are struggling to field too many characters. As a result, Russell seems to be playing an entirely different character to the one he did in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Contatc picks up a check for what most have been half a day's work, tops, and John Common's ghost could have been swapped out for almost any other character with minimal retooling. It's not helped by the fact that the film seems so small, not intimate in scope, mind you, just cheap, with limited locations and lackluster action. It feels like a placeholder, a film whose sole function is to tie up a few dangling plot threads from a handful of other MCU projects while we wait for Fantastic Four, First Steps and Avengers, Doomsday to come down the pike. It comes at a time when the entire MCU seems shaky, and while it isn't as awkward an entry into the canon as, say, The Eternals, it feels like a film created out of a combination of contractual obligation and financial dictates rather than because there's a story here that was burning to be told. It's a shame, because the cast is great. Stan is in the middle of a great run, with The Apprentice and A Different Man immediately preceding this mess. And the old anti-heroes save the day bit is always appealing. But Thunderbolts is way less than the sum of its parts, bringing Robert Downey Jr. back for the upcoming of Ain much to the chagrin of Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova, the name hastily cooked up by another member of the rough-edged new superhero crew in Thunderbolts is borrowed from the Pee Wee soccer team of her childhood, which never won a game. That implicit underdog tag is in keeping with a group that's continually underestimated, dismissed as a bunch of antisocial losers by the villain who wants them out of the way. But the asterisk tacked onto the title of this enjoyable Marvel offshoot indicates that the name and its history will not define them. While a handful of the characters and the actors playing them have appeared in previous entries, there's a disarming freshness to this first-time assembly. Not to mention something even more unexpected, heart. That's due to an appealing ensemble cast but also to the new blood of a creative team with a distinctive take on the genre. Thunderbolts. Release date, Friday, May 2nd. Cast, Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurylenko, Lewis Pullman, Geraldine Viswanathan, Chris Bauer, Wendell Pierce, David Harbour, Hannah John Common, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Director, Jake Schreier. Screenwriters, Eric Pearson, Joanna Callow. Rated PG-13, 2 hours 6 minutes. Chief among them is director Jake Schreier, best known for the Netflix hit Beef, and the screenwriting duo of Eric Pearson, who co-wrote Thor, Ragnarok and Black Widow, and Joanna Callow, another Beef film whose credits also include multiple episodes of The Bear and BoJack Horseman. Thunderbolts by no means reinvents the superhero movie and its pacing isn't as consistent as it could be. But at a time when Marvel fatigue has taken a bite out of more than one fizzled blockbuster, it's a relief to watch a comic book movie in which the smug wisecracking is dialed way down and the characters are given interior dimensions beyond their powers, including a certain emotional fragility. That doesn't mean there's any less physical action or threatened destruction, but there's a kind of back-to-basics innocence here that makes the stakes feel more real. Yelena is the center of the group and Pugh the movie's MVP in a performance that expands on the character traits that made her so captivating in Black Widow, the deadpan insouciance but, more notably, the depth of bruised feelings she attempts to hide behind her tactical skills as a trained assassin. If that 2021 film hinged on the repair of frayed surrogate family ties and the contentious but binding hold of sisterhood, Thunderbolts shows Yelena brooding on the emptiness of her life in the wake of her adoptive sister's death. She's questioning whether the void is just boredom or something bigger as she undertakes a clean-up assignment in a Malaysian lab, eliminating both material and human evidence that can be tied back to CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Through the scientific research company OAKS, Yelena feels adrift, prompting her to request that Valentina reassign her to a more public-facing position. The transparently shifty CIA director agrees on the condition that Yelena first destroy one last OAKS facility, embedded in a mountain. Valentina's involvement in experimental injections of super serums into human guinea pigs has made her the target of an impeachment hearing conducted by Congressman Gary Wendell Pierce. She has her sharp assistant Mal, Geraldine Viswanathan, working overtime to clean up the evidence. Freshman Congressman Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan, whose Winter Soldier life will be hard to put behind him, is working behind the scenes to help expose Valentina's malfeasance. He spots a potential asset in Mal. The familiar team-up element of the MCU formula happens when Yelena finds herself in conflict in an underground vault at the remaining OAKS site with John Walker, Wyatt Russell, whom she dubs the Dimes to War Captain America Ava Starr, aka Ghost, Hannah John Common, and, in a blink-and-you-miss-it appearance, Taskmaster, Olga Kurylenko. Realizing that Valentina has set them up in a death trap as more potential damage to be removed, the group bands together, taking a dazed and confused lab patient named Bob, Lewis Pullman, along with them as they bust out. The father figure whose every word pops an eye roll from Yelena, Alexei Shostakov, David Harbour, turns up to get them out of there in the Red Guardian vehicle that he operates as a limo service. "Protecting you from boring evening," reads the slogan painted on the door. But when a convoy of tanks threatens to end them as they speed across the desert, Utah serves as a panoramic location. It's Bucky's intervention on a motorcycle that saves their asses, or so it seems. Marvel Comics obsessives will likely guess the revelations about Bob and the reasons he is separated from the group. But for audiences without that encyclopedic knowledge, developments surround the character, and his affinity with Yelena, will be a rewarding part of the story. Beautifully played by Pullman as a sweet-natured, broken man struggling to outrun his troubled past, Bob is a complex figure through which the movie explores mental instability and the fight between light and darkness. The screenplay's introduction of interconnected shame rooms, where characters get stuck in painful memories from their past. Yelena's lingering trauma from her training as a childhood assassin, John's sorrowful separation from his wife and child. Dips perhaps a little heavy-handedly into textbook psychology, but having them confront their emotional debris gives them satisfying depths that enrich the experience of the movie. The destructive forces unleashed on New York allow the Thunderbolts to shake off their disillusionment and rediscover the joy of heroism, something of which Harbour's Russian super soldier, Red Guardian, says, "There is no higher calling." Leaning into the goofball aspects of the character and the amusingly chewy accent, Harbour gets many of the funniest lines, at one point telling Yelena, "The light inside you is dim, even by Eastern European standards." The ways in which mayhem is visited upon the city and thwarted almost feel like a throwback to vintage Superman and Batman films. Before mass CG destruction pretty much pummeled any visceral excitement out of the superhero genre. Just watching characters block falling slabs of concrete or hurtling cars, whisking New Yorkers out of the way to safety in the nick of time, is refreshing after so many movies with actors stuck in front of green screens battling annihilation beams from space. The change of aesthetic clearly is the result of creative team not plucked from the usual MCU stable, including talented cinematographer Andrew Palermo, who brought such distinctive visuals to the David Lowery films A Ghost Story and The Green Knight. Instead of the usual bland plastic sheen, he gives us a movie with grit and texture, echoed in the details of Grace Young sets. And the score by experimental group Sunlux is a welcome shift away from orchestral bombast into more nuanced territory. Pugh proves herself more than capable of leading a Marvel joint, and this is very much her movie, though the entire ensemble play crucial parts, in keeping with the story's ethos. The banter among the Thunderbolts is droll without ever trying too hard, and snippy without ever putting the team's unity in doubt. That carries through to the requisite post-credits sequence, which lays groundwork for the next installment, just as the coda on Black Widow suggested a core element of this one. Stan, Russell, John Common and Harbour all get to find new colors in roles they have played in previous MCU installments. Louis Dreyfus, while never quite escaping the shameless persona of Selena Meyer, maybe it's just seeing her back in Washington, clearly relishes power-hungry Valentina's ruthless villainy and her political opportunism, without sacrificing the humor. Viswanathan, one of few saving graces in Ethan Coen's painful drive-away dolls, is a very likable presence with potential for future developments. And as the most significant addition, Pullman is wonderful. Whether Thunderbolts can rescue the MCU from its doldrums remains to be seen when audiences weigh in, but it at least seems a step in the direction of creative renewal. The Oscar-nominated actor is the most impressive member of a ragtag Suicide Squad-esque team in an often charmingly unusual yet still baggy adventure. Thunderbolts can be messy, not just the movie, with its clumsily forced narrative beats and whiplash tonal shifts, but also its title characters, the broken and lonely souls who ditch the colorful costumes and wear their emotions on their sleeves, as if it's their brand. These reluctant heroes, led by Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova, the troubled sister to Scarlett Johansson's led Black Widow, are defined by how much they need therapy. They wrestle with themselves more than the bad guys, in a way that's more pronounced than the most unstable among Marvel's stable of wisecracking world saviors. They're endearingly vulnerable, at times devastatingly so, and yet still fun and exciting enough to save Marvel, the globe-dominating franchise, biding its time until the next wave of Avengers movies, has been in desperate need of saving, what with recent misfires like the Marvels and Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts, which happens to be the best thing to come from the brand since WandaVision. Still, the high watermark gets the job done. You would be forgiven if you're wondering who the hell the Thunderbolts even are. The title, stylized with an asterisk, playfully winks at the general air of uncertainty around them. In the comic books, Thunderbolts started out as a series where, in the Avengers' absence, villains disguise themselves as heroes. Here they're a Suicide Squad-like team-up consisting of villains and anti-heroes, repurposed supporting figures from some of Marvel's more forgettable movies and TV shows. David Harbour returns as Yelena Alexei Shostakov, aka Red Guardian, who has been slumming it as a limo driver ever since the events in Black Widow, while readily on call for hero duty. Wyatt Russell's John Walker, that disgraced Captain American replacement, who was fired after he murdered an unarmed insurgent in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, also checks in for duty. There's also Ant-Man and the Wasp's villain Ghost, Hannah John Common, and, the most popular among them, Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan, the former Winter Soldier. He's all too familiar with the redemption journey the Thunderbolts, all haunted by sins from their past, are embarking on. But this time, the redemption is twofold. It belongs to Marvel too. I would be remiss not to point out that this franchise has a pretty good track record with B-teams like this. The whole MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, got off the ground with leftovers like Iron Man, Captain America and Thor. After all, when more popular heroes like Spider-Man and the X-Men had been loaned out to other studios, and when these would-be Avengers became the dominant force in entertainment, the Guardians of the Galaxy, complete with a machine-gun-toting raccoon and a tree voiced by Vin Diesel, came out of left field to grow into fan favorites. It's as if, when Marvel is unburdened by familiarity and the entitled demands of fans, they can approach something, dare I say, original. Okay, maybe original is too much, then and now. Thunderbolts is more like a fresh spin on the familiar Avengers formula, one that, as Pugh inferred in an interview with Empire magazine, borrows some trendy touches from indie A24 movies. The latter studio is behind Midsommar, the gruesome thriller where Pugh came on hard with the trauma, and Oscar winner Everything Everywhere All at Once, which casts a large shadow over the plot and climactic action in Thunderbolts. The action, so often imbued with and even led by personality, immediately feels different from its opening frames, which actually boasts captivating aesthetics, a rarity in the Marvel universe. There is something wrong with me, are the first words we hear from Pugh's Yelena, as she teeters over the edge of Merdeka 18, one of the world's tallest building. She takes a deep and meaningful breath, as if she's comfortably embracing death, and this won't be the first time she does that. Before leaping off the ledge, she's not taking her own life, but throwing herself into combat, engaged in impressive acrobatic choreography that's often shot from a distance or even overhead, as if disembodied, giving us the space to observe its thrills while also reflecting where she's at emotionally. She's talking about her feelings while throwing roundhouses, her dry internal monologue riddled with flip gallows humor that fits the mood. As if she's detached from those emotions she identifies in comical though not necessarily healthy ways. Her mission is to destroy evidence, covering the tracks for Julia Louis-Dreyfus's scheming CIA director Valentina Allegra Fontaine, who Congress has in the hot seat for her questionable tactics. On another such mission, Yelena, along with fellow covert operators Ghost and John Walker, are themselves the targets. They're sent to take each other out. After a nifty little brawl, they decide, despite their antisocial behavior, to work together instead. They also happen upon Bob, who Lewis Pullman plays as an undefined mass of anxieties and yearning. He's a top-secret human guinea pig, genetically engineered with cataclysmic superhuman abilities, which, as you would expect, goes bad. Here, Thunderbolts borrows a little from Josh Trank's Chronicle, which was also about giving superpowers to someone in crisis. The eventual showdown between the Thunderbolts and Bob's supervillain side, the Void, who consumes humans in dark shadows, is ambitious if also ungainly, taking place largely in surreal internal spaces that Yelena amusingly dubs interconnected shame rooms. The characters battle their emotions, fighting for healing, as the movie tries everything everywhere styled to wrestle some theatricality out of all this. That climax makes for an admirable attempt at doing right by the movie's mental health themes, which Thunderbolts, more often than not, doesn't turn. It's already hard to take this stuff seriously in a franchise trying to earn some goodwill as it nudges our attention towards upcoming Avengers movies. Thunderbolts often irritates because the depression and trauma the movie supposedly grapples with so often lives on the surface, like easy character traits that are spoken out loud or worn like another costume fitting. But if it ultimately works, it's all due to Pugh, who can wrestle sincerity out of a screenplay, and a franchise that has so little, capturing a whole emotional arc in just her moments of silence. She's a superhero performer, easily navigating the tricky balance between cheeky Marvel brand humor and genuine pathos. Thunderbolts can be messy. Sure, Pugh is the kind of star who can thrive in such mess. Thunderbolts is out in US and UK cinemas on 2nd of May and showing in Australian cinemas now. Gers. Doomsday smack of desperation, a Hail Mary pass to save a diminishing franchise. Thunderbolts indicates maybe Kevin Feige and friends aren't desperate enough. Marvel's Thunderbolts is easily one of the best Marvel films to be released in a very long time. In fact, I'd say it's easily one of the best films of the year. At least, I think it is. I walked out of the theater with that feeling I haven't had in a long time from a Marvel film. I was in awe. For me, this movie hit all the right notes. Great story, strong character development, an outstanding script, killer action sequences, and some of the best performances the MCU has delivered in years. This is what top-tier Marvel storytelling looks like. Honestly, if you've been waiting for that spark to come back, the one we all felt during Marvel's peak years, this is it. I know a lot of people are already saying it's the best Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame, and I completely agree. But for me personally, Captain America, the Winter Soldier has always been my gold standard, and Thunderbolts stands right alongside it. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. While the movie is packed with intense action and a ton of fun and comedic moments, what really pulled me in were the emotional layers built into each character. The film digs deep into who these characters are and what's weighing on them. There's a heavy focus on mental health that felt genuine and honest, something that isn't often handled with as much care in superhero movies. It made the story feel much more personal and meaningful. Thunderbolts spends time exploring trauma, how it shapes people, how it haunts them, and how they cope with it, or don't. Every character is dealing with some kind of darkness, and the way the movie allows each of them to process that, sometimes ugly, sometimes inspiring, gave the whole thing a real emotional weight. It didn't just ask me to root for them as heroes, it tasked me to understand them as people. It's messy, it's painful, and it's handled with a surprising amount of care. Watching these characters try to pull themselves out of their own darkness made the story land even harder because you actually care about what's at stake for them personally. Another thing I loved is how the movie kept things smaller in scale, but it felt big because of what the characters were dealing with emotionally. It's not about saving the world from destruction, it's about saving each other. The villain, Bob, aka the Sentry, aka the Void, is handled in a way that feels completely fresh, without giving anything away. It's not the kind of climactic battle you'd expect from Marvel. It's smarter, more psychological, and it made the story land even harder. It was a creative risk, and it absolutely paid off. The story is set in a world without Avengers. There's still a need for heroes. Or at least something like them. Enter the Thunderbolts, Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and U.S. Agent, a group of disillusioned misfits wrangled together by Valentina Allegra Fontaine. After getting trapped in a brutal setup by Val herself, they're forced onto a mission that challenges them to either destroy each other or find a way to build something better. It's intense, entertaining, and filled with character moments that actually stick. As for the cast, they knocked it out of the park. Florence Pugh gave her best Marvel performance yet as Yelena, really leaning into the emotional scars of her past. She was awesome in this movie. Sebastian Stan was phenomenal as Bucky. David Harbour brought the big comedic moments, and Hannah John Comment, Wyatt Russell, Louis Pullman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Olga Kurylenko all brought their A-game as well. Director Jake Schreier and the writers clearly poured a lot of heart into this film, and it shows. The story came from Eric Pearson, who also wrote the script with Joanna Callow. I applaud the creative team for giving us a Marvel movie that's not just good at broken bar, it's freaking great. Marvel's Thunderbolts is easily one of the best Marvel films to be released in a very long time. In fact, I'd say it's easily one of the best films of the year. At least, I think it is. I walked out of the theater with that feeling I haven't had in a long time from a Marvel film. I was in awe. For me, this movie hit all the right notes. Great story, strong character development, an outstanding script, killer action sequences, and some of the best performances the MCU has delivered in years. This is what top-tier Marvel storytelling looks like. Honestly, if you've been waiting for that spark to come back, the one we all felt during Marvel's peak years, this is it. I know a lot of people are already saying it's the best Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame, and I completely agree. But for me personally, Captain America, the Winter Soldier has always been my gold standard, and Thunderbolts stands right alongside it. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. While the movie is packed with intense action and a ton of fun and comedic moments, what really pulled me in were the emotional layers built into each character. The film digs deep into who these characters are and what's weighing on them. There's a heavy focus on mental health that felt genuine and honest, something that isn't often handled with as much care in superhero movies. It made the story feel much more personal and meaningful. Thunderbolts spends time exploring trauma, how it shapes people, how it haunts them, and how they cope with it, or don't. Every character is dealing with some kind of darkness, and the way the movie allows each of them to process that, sometimes ugly, sometimes inspiring, gave the whole thing a real emotional weight. It didn't just ask me to root for them as heroes, it tasked me to understand them as people. It's messy, it's painful, and it's handled with a surprising amount of care. Watching these characters try to pull themselves out of their own darkness made the story land even harder because you actually care about what's at stake for them personally. Another thing I loved is how the movie kept things smaller in scale, but it felt big because of what the characters were dealing with emotionally. It's not about saving the world from destruction, it's about saving each other. The villain, Bob, aka the Sentry, aka the Void, is handled in a way that feels completely fresh, without giving anything away. It's not the kind of climactic battle you'd expect from Marvel. It's smarter, more psychological, and it made the story land even harder. It was a creative risk, And it absolutely paid off. The story is set in a world without Avengers. There's still a need for heroes. Or at least something like them. Enter the Thunderbolts: Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and U.S. Agent, a group of disillusioned misfits wrangled together by Valentina Allegra Fontaine. After getting trapped in a brutal setup by Val herself, they're forced onto a mission that challenges them to either destroy each other or find a way to build something better. It's intense, entertaining, and filled with character moments that actually stick. As for the cast, they knocked it out of the park. Florence Pugh gave her best Marvel performance yet as Yelena, really leaning into the emotional scars of her past. She was awesome in this movie. Sebastian Stan was phenomenal as Bucky. David Harbour brought the big comedic moments, and Hannah John Comment, Wyatt Russell, Louis Pullman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Olga Kurylenko all brought their A-game as well. Director Jake Schreier and the writers clearly poured a lot of heart into this film, and it shows. The story came from Eric Pearson, who also wrote the script with Joanna Callow. I applaud the creative team for giving us a Marvel movie that's not just good at broken bar, it's freaking great. A recent Thunderbolts review update may be a good sign for Marvel fans, before the MCU dips its toes back into the Marvel multiverse with this summer's Fantastic Four. The super-powered franchise will take audiences on a more grounded journey with the upcoming Thunderbolts movie. Based on the comic book team of the same name, the Thunderbolts serve as the almost anti-Avengers. They are a group of some of the franchise's less desirable heroes brought together to get their hands dirty where Earth's mightiest heroes would not. Thunderbolts review embargo update will drop weeks before movie's release. MCU fans are gleaming, as a new Thunderbolts review update may give away key information about the quality of the film. Thunderbolts News on X confirmed the official Thunderbolts social reaction and review embargo online. The first social reactions to the film will go live on Tuesday, April 22, at 4:30 p.m. ET, with full reviews following a week later on Tuesday, April 29, at noon ET. What is notable about these times is how far in advance they are compared to the movie's official theatrical release. Thunderbolts is set to hit theaters worldwide on Friday, May 2nd, meaning these first reactions will start to pop up more than 2 weeks before it is even out in theaters. This is a dramatic change from recent Disney and Marvel Studios projects, which have, for the most part, kept their review cards close to the vest until several days before release, and could mean the movie is being looked at fondly internally. In fact, this is the longest gap between a social reaction embargo and a theatrical release date for a Marvel Studios project since 2023's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Why Thunderbolts review embargo is a good sign for MCU fans while not confirming Thunderbolts as quality. Allowing critics to share their thoughts on the movie this far in advance likely indicates that Marvel Studios is confident in the film. If Marvel were worried about how Thunderbolts would fare with critics, it would have kept its embargo right up until close to release so that potential adverse reactions do not stunt the potential momentum of the movie heading into its opening weekend. Putting these embargo dates as far out as Marvel has likely means that the superpowered studio is confident in Thunderbolts and knows the earlier it can get people talking about the movie, the better. Thunderbolts has been compared to movies like Guardians 3 coming out of test screening. Read more about the Thunderbolts test screening early reactions here, which means Marvel Studios may have another hit on its hands and knows it. If Thunderbolts is as good as this review update seems to indicate it is, Marvel will almost surely breathe the collective sigh of relief. The MCU's theatrical efforts stumbled out of the gates in 2025 with Captain America: Brave New World. The latest Captain America sequel was critically maligned and did not light the world on fire financially either. And with big names like Fantastic Four and 2 Avengers movies on the horizon, winning fans back over with a hit like Thunderbolts might be the best thing for the franchise moving into this critical next 18 months. Another reason why getting the conversation surrounding the movie started as early as the studios seem to be is the relative lack of name recognition around the heroes it centers on. The Thunderbolts name does not have the cachet of something like the Avengers, Fantastic Four, or Spider-Man. The characters that make up the movie's superhero squad are more well known by the actors who play them rather than by the comic book heroes themselves. If Marvel knows the movie is good, then getting that word out sooner rather than later is a good idea so that people who were not interested in the movie because they have no history with the characters in the film can become aware that this is something that needs to be seen on the big screen. Cards on the table. Thunderbolts A. Yes, the asterisk is part of the title. A is the first MCU film that I've been genuinely excited about in years. Maybe it's because the film seems to have a smaller scope, or maybe because of its motley yet colorful cast of anti-heroes, many of whom are second tier at best but have made a splash in other Marvel titles. Jake Schreier's film features a group of colorful ne'er-do-wells brought together for what's almost certainly a suicide mission, and lets them knock heads for a bit, a classic movie trope that's always ripe for cinematic gold. Additionally, the film's marketing has really pushed the idea that this is not your typical Marvel movie. Indeed, it almost seems like they want you to think it's an A24-esque indie flick. So, does Thunderbolts live up to the hype and breathe some new life into the MCU? Or is it just more proof that the post-Endgame MCU can't find its way? Read on to see what critics are saying. Cynically, you could say that Thunderbolts simply picks up ideas that other Marvel projects like WandaVision and Moon Knight have offered before, remixing them and honing them after they were previously flubbed. And cynically, you can say that Thunderbolts is just another stopgap until the real heavy hitters like Fantastic Four and Avengers take the spotlight. And yet, despite everything it's got going against it, Thunderbolts is, surprisingly, really good. Alas, the film quickly follows its own nose down the superheroism as mental health allegory rabbit hole, which means that saving the world or at least New York involves a lot of muttering about drama in between flashbacks to various formative miseries. Despite its notionally spiky tone, moroseness is the film's root chord. Marvel has lost any sense of purpose in the aimless years since Avengers Endgame, and Thunderbolts is determined to get some of it back, to restore the swaggering confidence of those early movies, to return to their focus on, relatively, tactile action, clear emotional stakes, and eventually the kind of reluctant team building that forges strength out of the same differences that threaten to tear our world apart. It's been a long time since a Marvel movie has felt like a Marvel movie. Sure, the characters are still recognizable, but recently, it has felt like each new entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is more interested in introducing us to the franchise's future than in showing us the latest adventures of the characters we love, let alone giving us new heroes worth caring about. But Marvel's latest theatrical release, Thunderbolts, feels like a return to the good old days. It features no multiverses and hardly any CGI nonsense. Just exceptionally charming actors playing lovable characters in a story that's actually about something. The movie as a whole could be accused of belaboring its points about trauma and depression and, perhaps worse, doing that thing where the writers expect massive laughs from repetition of the name Bob. Yet all this feels so much more forgivable when the movie sticks its landing, which in this case means the actual ending, and the two credits scenes that both feel locked into the characters, even as one rolls out the standard teaser routine. Turns out, that stuff isn't so annoying when it happens in the company of characters like Yelena and Red Guardian. Thunderbolts is the first Marvel movie in a couple of years to make a good faith effort to live in its characters' heads, rather than just their wiki pages. And, so, Thunderbolts is good. Not single-handedly save the Marvel Cinematic Universe good, but enough to make those self-declared victims of superhero fatigue reconsider that it might not be the genre itself that's tapped out, but merely the focus on telling stories versus marketing future sequels and the sickly shimmer of nostalgia. Thunderbolts has all the right ingredients for success, including an interesting assemblage of talent in front of and behind the camera, but it's squandered on yet another MCU entry that fails to offer any passion or momentum. Superhero team-ups movies are often greater than the sum of its parts, The opposite proves true here. Some of the best movies in the history of the MCU have thrived off bouncing interesting characters and performances off each other in projects like The Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't expect Thunderbolts to have the same culture-shaping legacy as those projects. Still, I could easily see it bringing fans back to this universe who felt burned after misfires like the Marvels, Brave New World, and the truly dismal Quantumania. The cynical might say Thunderbolts is just a stepping stone to tee up its post-credit scene, arguably more influential on the Marvel Cinematic Universe than any one scene in the movie. And while this may be true to an extent, that's not the point. Thunderbolts may combine many incongruent outcasts from the MCU, but it's a consequential story about them, as humans, as people, their traumas, their doubts, and not how they impact the world. At a time when Marvel fatigue has taken a bite out of more than one fizzled blockbuster, it's a relief to watch a comic book movie in which the smug wisecracking is dialed way down and the characters are given interior dimensions beyond their powers, including a certain emotional fragility. That doesn't mean there's any less physical action or threatened destruction, but there's a kind of back-to-basics innocence here that makes the stakes feel more real. Thunderbolts arrives in theaters on May 2, 2025. Watch the trailer below.